Hey, I'm going to admit up front we're kind of. I'm going to pat myself on the back for a moment. Unfortunately, Daddy Rod could not join us with our special guest, Damon L. Jacobs of Tub Talks with Damon. And so we kind of had to scramble at the last minute to find something to replace. So I had to update a lot of the graphics, update a lot of the sounds. We had this whole setup in the bathtub because we were going to be broadcasting from the bathtub. And unfortunately, since that didn't work out, everything had to be moved. I haven't had a chance to test out the sound or the video. Hopefully, you can see and hear this whole thing. If not, it's an atypical episode for Listen to Daddy. I suppose at this point I need to say I am your host, Daddy Rob, and as always, listen to Daddy. And my special guest today is my husband slash boy slash best friend, Boy Titan. And I'm glad he could sit in with me. We were going to be sitting in a tub together here in our home in Palm Springs while Rod and Damon sat in a tub on the East Coast and talked. So a lot of the drive for this particular episode has to do with, coincidentally, Daddy Rod and I both share anniversaries with our partners on the same day, October 10th. And I believe Daddy Rod, this is 1 year of his, it's the 1 year anniversary of his dating Damon. And this October 10th would have been our 13th wedding anniversary after about 15 years together.
Would have been. I hope it was.
Okay. I thought maybe today we could just talk about what it is, our relationship. You can get to know a little bit more about me and my husband, who normally is sitting behind a computer when we're doing these episodes, making sure all the technical stuff is running. So today I'm doing it from here because I don't have a technician. So if I keep looking down and pressing on stuff, you know what's happening. So again, 13 years ago, we got married a little over 13 years ago, and a little around 15 years ago, we met. And I'm going to let my boy Titan husband, boy Titan, talk for a little bit about his experience of how we met, because we have two different stories, and that'll give me a chance to breathe because I've been running around.
Yeah. Well, we actually, the two of us met doing local community. Invited us to audition for a particular musical, a gay musical called 108 Waverly, at a little theater that used to exist here in Palm Springs called Forming, and became at least somewhat acquainted back through that wonderful experience. It was my foray into theater and Rob's return to theater after quite a number of years of not doing so. Anyway, we met through that event, and even though both of us were in other relationships at the time, we started recognizing an interest in one another. First friendship, and well, 2 years later, wound up being a marriage. And I'm so delighted, and can't imagine a better partner in life. So,
Talk to them about when you first actually saw him.
oh, well, uh, Rob has been a member of the Palm Springs Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence here in Palm Springs in the early 2000s. He was a member there, and I had seen him out at events in his persona at the time of guard boner donor, sexy hot man in leather and white pancake makeup. I had noticed him, I had been attracted to him, but I thought, oh, he's clearly involved in that group. He's clearly heavily involved in a relationship that he was in at the time. And so I didn't give him a whole lot of thought. And then one day I was in the gym with a friend of mine, and a friend turned and said, "Oh my God, look at that fool over there on on a treadmill, and I turned and I saw the most intensely attractive man I've ever seen in my life. And lo and behold, it was Rob. His confidence, his unusual clothing style. He was wearing a t-shirt that was cut on the sides down to his waist, I swear. Anyway, I thought he was the hottest man I'd ever seen, and I had a crush on him instantly. So much so that honestly, it hurt to see him there. I was head over heels very, very quickly. So anyway, I had a crush on him long before, and then, like I said, about 2 months later, I happened to be cast in a show with this man, and didn't really know how to start a conversation. I don't think I talked to him much during the entire performance. I was so scared of him, but luckily he expressed an interest in me, and the rest is history. So, a little about me. Despite the fact that you're seeing us here in our leather outfits, our leather attire, I actually was really mostly introduced to the leather community through Daddy Rob. 2 years into our relationship, he participated in the Iowa leather contest, the Mr. Iowa leather contest, and much to our delight, he was elected for that year Mr. Iowa Leather. And that threw me very quickly into the leather scene. Having had experiences just from Daddy Rob at home in our private life, all of a sudden we were very much in a public situation, and I learned a great deal about the leather and kink community that year. Doing a lot of traveling, doing a lot of bar events, doing a lot of social organizations, of social events, and meeting a lot of wonderful, amazing people who I hope we will stay forever friends with. And yeah, that was my introduction to the leather community. It was a whirlwind and quite a lot of fun.
All right, I had to do some audio fixes. If anybody was paying attention earlier, we had an audio cut in and out. Still don't know how many people are watching at this point, but we do have the live chat on, and Boy Titan is keeping an eye on that. And I heard most of what you were saying about how we met. My recollection is, again, as you mentioned, we did theater together. The very first show I did in Palm Springs. When I moved here, I was in a relationship with somebody else, and I wanted to find something to do outside of the 9-to-5 I was doing. And I had done theater when I was in high school and college, but hadn't really done. I had done some community theater when I was living in San Antonio, but after moving to California, I hadn't really done anything until I moved to Palm Springs. And a friend of mine in the Sisters was going to audition for a show at the Thorny Theater, which is the LGBT theater in Palm Springs. And I don't normally do musicals, but that's what they were auditioning for. So, but it was a new musical, and specifically a gay musical. And during the audition process, I had met Boy Titan. And then when we were in the show, we were friendly, but the parts we played were, we were each part of a different couple who lived in, it's very complicated, but essentially Titan and I never really interacted with that. So we started actually dating after that show. And that, again, was about 15 years ago. I think it was 2008 when we did, it was 2008 when we did that show. So it's been a while. So it's, I've often heard, if you want to find somebody to spend the rest of your life with, a great way to do that is to join an organization that does something you're passionate about. And hopefully you'll meet somebody there who's passionate about the same thing, and you can develop a spark. And if it's not a lifetime romantic relationship, it may be a lifetime friendship. So I highly recommend that. Then after both of us were actually in a relationship at the time that we met, and transitioned out of them not too long after that. And it wasn't because we had met and were together, or wanted to be together. It was just that's the way things worked out. And I remember after my relationship ended, I think I'd been in that relationship for about 5 years, and my concern was I didn't want to jump into a rebound relationship, so I was trying to maintain a no strings attached. And I talked to my father at some point on the phone and was telling him that I had met somebody after the breakup, and I said, but I don't want to. I think he's great, but I don't want to rush into a commitment, because I don't want him to be the rebound guy. And my dad was basically encouraging me. He said, when you know, if this guy is interesting to you, pursue him. And then my best friends at the time, I at one point went in to went over to their place to have martinis. And apparently at some point during that, I said, I am not going to fall in love with this guy. And that's when they knew I was hooked. And they were the best men at our wedding. They'd been together for a while.
Shout out to you guys, Mike and Mark. Love you both.
Yeah. So, and they were our best men. And then our maid of honor was my dog. It became our dog, but she had been with me for about 5 years at that point, if not more. And I wish we'd had more time to prepare for this. I would have had a slideshow ready to go and show pictures of it. But if you look, actually, I think the photo that I used for this particular episode is our wedding photo. So afterwards, you can look at it and you can see
our maid of honor.
I'm holding on to her. Mike and Mark were too big for me to hold, but. But one of the best days of my life. I was just recently looking at pictures because Facebook gives you your memory pictures, and obviously I posted pictures of the wedding, as did friends. And there's a picture of Titan and I coming down the aisle after being married. We were hand-fasted during the ceremony, and just the looks on our face was just it's nice to see us being so happy about the same thing at the same time. And I think it's worth noting as well. I mean, as far as I was concerned, it was my perfect wedding because of everybody who was there. The best men who had become both of our best friends at that point, and our dog, who we both loved, and the person who was the minister at our ceremony was one of my best friends in the world. She was my spiritual advisor when I was living in Texas, and just passed away almost 2 years ago now. So it's a beautiful memory of a beautiful day. We got married in
the courtyard of the Palm Canyon Theater,
right,
here in Palm Springs.
We were going to get married at the Thorny Theater, but the theater closed.
A month before our wedding.
Yeah, so we had to scramble for another venue. But I had just done King and I at that theater. In fact, that was kind of one of those moments of our relationship when I was in the rehearsals for King and I, playing the King, thank you very much. But he had come in with a dinner, and you can tell this part of it.
Okay. Throughout our relationship, I was head over heels for this guy. Rob was a major crush I had on him, and I was not 100% convinced how into me he was. At one point, I remember asking him, "Okay, what can I do to make you understand that I am 100% serious about you?" And his reaction was, "I don't know, but when you figure it out, you'll let me know." So I knew he was in the King and I knew he was going to be really busy at rehearsals and then a performance. So I thought, well, maybe I'll do I know he's not planning on eating. He's just going to, try and go in cold. I'll bring him a picnic dinner. Something simple that he can eat really quickly and we can share together before, and hopefully relax for a moment or two before going on stage. And thank you very much, C. Lane. She not only encouraged this, she allowed us to take over one of the rehearsal rooms that was already pre-decorated for a post-show party with fairy lights and lovely little decorations. So we just spread a blanket out on the floor of that rehearsal room and had a nice little picnic. And I'm so delighted he enjoyed it and didn't think it was corny as heck.
No, it was very romantic. So the fact that we then ended up getting married in the courtyard of that particular theater had as much, maybe not as much. It had significance. I mean, it would have been a full circle thing to have gotten married at the Thorny Theater where we originally met, but everything doesn't work out the way you anticipate it. In fact, we were going to have were we going to have a reception there as well?
At the Thorny? I don't think so.
Somehow we ended up having to move our reception as what the venue that we were going to use for it didn't work out. So a lot of it was last minute stuff. And for it being last minute, it was beautiful. I have never been more happy with something I've planned as far as events go. And to have a few people actually over the years since our ceremony have commented on how beautiful a ceremony it is. We lived in Palm Springs for a few years and then moved about
2013, we moved to Des Moines, Iowa.
Yeah. Was it right? Yes, we did. And but after being gone for 10 years, we've just moved back, and there are people who still remember being at our wedding, and people I don't remember being at our wedding who are remembering being at our wedding. Actually, I have a terrible memory for a lot of things, but I mean, that was a big day for us. I mean, there were a lot of people there at our wedding, and I was amazed how many people were at our wedding. I had forgotten we knew that many people, and they all enjoyed it, which is great. But everybody, that's the celebration of 13 years is that particular day. And as I said, we're together longer. Coincidentally, I didn't know until some period after we set the date. The date of our wedding was October 10th, 2010. The ceremony started at 10:10. It was a very 10s across the board, as they say. But I had proposed to him on October 10th of 2009. So the date we picked for the wedding had nothing to do with that. It was just coincidental. Looking back on the calendar, I realized that had happened. And that happened when I'd been laid off of the job that I had and was looking for other work. And it would have been 2010 because it was, 2009, whenever it was, I was hired by the U.S. Census Bureau and was going to have to live out in D.C. for a year, maybe?
10 months. It was a 10-month contract. And we were also... Okay.
Yeah.
No, I was just going to say, and I was scared to death that this guy I had just finally managed to be a serious relationship was about to move cross country for 10 months at least, and I was thinking I'd lost him. But I supported him in needing to continue his career and to do this. And luckily, on the day we had on October 10th, 2009, when we had a bon voyage party for him.
Because we were also going to take a cruise. It was a dual thing. We were going to be taking a cruise in like a week or so. So it combined everything together. It was like a goodbye for 10 months party and we're going on a cruise party. And I got down on my knee. I think I got down on one knee.
You did?
Yeah, and proposed. And he said yes. And then he was worried I would never come back.
Yeah, well, we had a number of unusual situations. One, he was about to leave for 10 months and he's proposing. It's like, what is going on? Then very shortly after that, we both decided we didn't want him to leave. job or no job. We wanted him to be here. I wanted him in my life. I didn't want him going away. And then he wound up having to take a job in L.A., which is a 3.5 hour commute multiple times. So for a couple of year plus, you were away 4 days a week, and that was a strain on our budding relationship. We had lots of
we both work
issues.
in technology, more the data field, and Palm Springs was not a big hub for computer tech. I don't know if it is now actually, but at the time I was not going to. After I got laid off, I just could not find a job in Palm Springs. That's why I was going to go to DC. In fact, the previous job I had was with AARP, which is headquartered in DC. So I'd been out there a lot, knew people there. So when that opportunity came up to work for the Census Bureau, it just meant that I was going to be staying near people I already knew. So that made it a little easier for me. But when we decided it was not a good idea for me to take that position, then I talked to a friend who had a place both in Palm Springs and LA, and he offered me a guest room. And then I ended up finding a job in the LA area in the tech field. So right after we got married is when the job started. I think we had like a week after the wedding day was my first day of work, and I was living in LA on somebody's fold-out couch, or futon, whatever it was, for Monday through Friday, and then weekends.
For a good 18 months, I think it was.
Actually, when I started, I was working weekends. So I was the work week there and the weekends at home, and that eventually became untenable. So we decided that job was no longer for me. I'd had a health issue. My mother had a health issue, and I wanted to live closer to family. My family lived in Des Moines. His family lived on the East Coast. So Des Moines was a shorter trip. So we lived there for a few years when I became Mr. Iowa Leather.
He started looking for jobs in the middle of the country in Des Moines, Iowa, and I said I would be following him, no problem. And then all of a sudden one day he says, they accepted, or they offered me a job. I'm leaving in a week to Des Moines, Iowa. And literally like 6 days later, he had packed his car and he was gone. And I was like, wait, okay.
Well, it isn't like it was a surprise.
No, it was not a
agreed.
surprise, but I was like, oh, wow, it happened faster than I thought.
Yeah.
So
it happened faster than I thought. I mean, it wasn't like I sprung this on him and said, "Oh, I'm doing this." We've always been good about talking about decisions that we make and supporting each other if it makes the most sense. And at that time, it did.
Yes, it did.
And so I moved to Des Moines. I was there a few months by myself before he came out, and he ended up finding a job at the same place I was working. So we got to spend a whole lot of time together there. And in Iowa was when I became Mr. Iowa Leather in 2015, right?
Yes. Well, it was
2013.
2014 that you got
Yeah.
voted in, and 2015 was when you participated in Mr. IML.
Yeah,
or IML.
and about a year after my step down, we decided that we were ready for a new adventure. And so I'd never lived on the East Coast. We basically looked up the top 10 gay cities in the United States, like several lists where they mention about gay-friendly cities, and Philadelphia showed up on a few of them. So
Yay,
we
Philadelphia!
just picked up and moved to Philadelphia, and that worked out because I finished my undergraduate there online in psychology, and that's all I wanted to do was complete the degree. And somehow, after conversations with people, I decided I wanted to actually change careers from data analytics to clinical therapy. And somebody mentioned that the local college, one of the local colleges had one of 2 human sexuality master's programs. And so I was like, oh, well, this is kismet. This works out. So I went to that program, got a dual degree in social work and human education, 2 master's degrees at the same time, 3 years later. And then when I got the degree, it became the question of where am I going to work? Because go ahead.
No, I didn't really want to interrupt, but he's always wanted to work with particularly the LGBTQ community, and it made more sense to move to a place where the population seems to support that community extraordinarily well. So we are back here in Palm Springs, California, where he has more opportunities to make use of his career.
Yeah, because a lot of the time that we were in Philadelphia was during COVID. So we weren't really leaving the house, but that was fine because we had converted our basement into a leather bar. We'll get more into the leather stuff in a moment. But we had pretty much made our house into a place where we would be happy all the time. We didn't have to go out. We had each other and we could order Uber, whatever, food delivery, Grubhub.
Grubhub.
Yeah, and we don't get any money from Grubhub, so...
Yes, no.
So we didn't have to leave home. It was great. But it meant that we really had not connected with the community out there. And I think we were about ready to start being more sociable in the Philadelphia area right when COVID hit. So the timing was horrible. But by the time COVID was over and I completed my degree, since we didn't have any real ties there, I had done my last year of internship at an LGBT medical center. And if they had offered me a position, I probably would have stayed in Philadelphia and gotten my licensure there. But when they didn't have an opening for me, since I am a clinical social worker, I can only do a practice on my own if I complete my licensure. And licensures are state specific. And so we had to have a question of, are we planning on staying in Pennsylvania for an extended period of time? And I think we both had agreed we weren't really excited about it. And about the same time, our friends Mike and Mark, who we had lost contact with for a while, reached out, and and through that conversation, they invited us to come visit them in Palm Springs. And when we were back here, we fell in love with the place
felt like we
again.
were in home.
Yeah, it's a nice little gay bubble. Nothing can harm you because you got your tribe here. If you're a gay man, I highly recommend, if you have not visited Palm Springs, to do that. You may not have the same experience we had, but this is now a gayer city than San Francisco, from what I hear, as far as the population. So that's... anyway, after being back here and realizing how much we missed it, we waited a couple of weeks till after we got back to Philadelphia to have a conversation about what we wanted to do. And it just made sense to sell our place in Philadelphia, move back to Palm Springs, and start the next chapter of our life here. And it seems to have worked out. I'm now working at a place in Palm Springs where I can get all the hours I need towards my licensure to become fully licensed. In the meantime, I'm learning a lot about mental health amongst a very particular population. And it's a government job, so I'm getting government benefits. And for the first time I'm in union. Go union. Labor Day meant something completely different this year. It's worked out. It's worked out. And I think that's one of the things I have loved the most about this relationship is that we may be afraid on our own to make big changes, but as long as we have each other, we know wherever we end up, we're going to have family there and be supported. So I think I take more risks in this relationship than I probably would have without it.
I think that is very true. I think both of us feel very much that the other person is our safety net. You are my safety net. I know you got my best interests in mind at all times, and I absolutely have your best interest in mind at all times. We may not always agree. We may argue about what's right, but we both know that we're trying to do the best thing for each other and for us as a couple. So this has been the right relationship.
Yeah, and no, we don't always agree. And if you're in a relationship where you're always agreeing with the other person, I would like to have a conversation with you because I don't know how the hell that happened. But any of the conflicts we've had, none of it have been around whether or not we love one another. It's always been what's the middle ground. I think most of the time it's usually a misunderstanding. We both have completely different backgrounds when it comes to our emotional makeup and our psychological defaults, and sometimes we misunderstand each other on a level. And fortunately, we have established a communication style where we can regroup and get to a place of agreement. I think one of the best rules that we ever came up with our relationship is if we're either both yes or it's a no. So if we want to do something, we both have to be in agreement that we're going to do that thing. If even one of us is a no, we don't do that thing. Most of the time we will respect a no from the other. Sometimes it just means we'll have this conversation again later and see if it changes. Our relationship style works for us. I mean, if anybody were to say, how do I have that relationship? I find this guy, because I don't know that, every couple is different on how they approach this stuff. But I wanted to touch on, as I was working with some technical stuff earlier, I thought I'd heard Titan talk about the fact that we were both in leather, but that our relationship, that was not the foundation of our relationship.
No, let's be honest. When I first met Daddy Rob, part of what I found both terrifying as well as incredibly enticing about him in a mysterious sort of way was, yes, he was there in the gym on a treadmill. He was wearing a slave collar. And although, again, I was only tangentially familiar with the leather community, I knew that meant he was not only in a very strongly bonded relationship with someone else, but also that he was considered the sub or the slave to someone. And in that sort of situation, that was a relationship style of which I was completely unfamiliar. And I was a little unnerved by that. But I was also incredibly proud of this man who had the self-confidence and to basically say, this is who I am, and I wear it proudly, and I don't give a damn what you think about whether my relationship or whatever. I'm proud of my relationship. I thought that was incredibly hot, that he was that self-confident and so forth. So whether I was familiar with a leather relationship, I was certainly enticed.
Oh, I'm glad I enticed you. Yeah, and just a reminder, we are live at the moment. So if anybody has any questions or comments at this point, I'm not even sure how many people are on at this point. I'd like to reiterate, this is not our normal format for this, for Listen to Daddy. Normally Daddy Rod is here with me, but unfortunately he was unable to join us. He and our other guest who was supposed to be joining us was unable to make it. So we're making the best of that situation and talking about the fact that this is October 10th was 2023 was our 13th wedding anniversary. So we're talking about our relationship, and we had just transitioned into talking about how leather or kink entered into our relationship. And even though I had a relationship background, that was very much defined by power dynamics, dom sub. When we started this relationship, that wasn't important. It wasn't important to me to have that dynamic in whatever my next relationship was, just that it be respected that was a part of who I am. So it wasn't like, as Titan was saying, he was already aware I was in a kinky relationship, and it didn't scare him off. And I think after a lot of conversations about it, we decided to integrate some of those dynamics into our relationship and see how they fit. And I would not say that we are a stereotypical kinky couple, but I would say that we enjoy testing our boundaries together.
Indeed, and educating each other, I think, or I certainly feel like I've been educated a great deal. A lot of people's nervousness or disinterest in the leather community, I think, comes simply from a lack of understanding what it is, and having been with somebody who was not only it was who was already in the leather community and was interested in exploring different kinks, has opened my eyes to the idea that sex and sexuality can be a playground, can be something where you just enjoy yourself so much more than I ever thought it was. It's an exploration. It's a scientific experiment playground. It's far more interesting than I think most of our society wants us to think of sex. And if power dynamics get in that, fine, as long as everybody there is enjoying it. I've enjoyed, and I've become much more open to power dynamics through my relationship with Daddy Rob.
Yeah, I was just, I forget who I was just talking to, but I was having this conversation about how our default for relationships is very heteronormative based. Understandably, most of us have had the experience of our caregivers when we were children, our primary caregivers being heterosexual individuals. 'Cause a lot of people were raised by their mother and father, whether they were together or separate. But the conversations around relationships were very much what a man does in a relationship and what a woman does, what a father is, what a mother is, yada, yada, yada. And so a lot of gay men, their default when they start a relationship is how does my relationship match my parents and how is it different? And generally, even the whole pursuit of the right to marry was about equality. It's like we want to be just like straight people. But then after a while, you realize that I'll own this one. I realized after a while that the more I tried to follow the straight rules, it didn't get me any closer to being treated like everybody else. I mean, there was always that feeling that my relationship in my life was lesser than a heterosexual couple or heterosexual person. So why keep trying to emulate a lifestyle of people that will never accept you? So that kind of gave me freedom to start defining my relationship by what makes me happy, not what's acceptable. And I've been fortunate to have a life partner who has supported that as well in saying that we can test our limits. We can redefine our relationship. We can decide how we want to be as individuals. I really had to think about this because the tub talks we were supposed to have today, when we were planning it with Daddy Rod and Damon, the question came up of how real do you want to get? I mean, are there questions that are off limits? Are there things that you're concerned about getting out there? And I got to be honest, there are things that I am concerned about being out there, but I had to think about why. And it was coming back to my parents. Yeah. And my parents have been very acceptable. My parents have been very accepting of a lot of things, considering that their background was, very Catholic, and they lived in a religious commune. And for the longest time, they were the textbook example of what a good Catholic Christian family is. And about the time I came out, not too long after I came out to them, I came out to them when I was 25. Not too long after that, they ended up leaving the commune. They've kind of changed their whole perspective on religion. My dad is like very anti-religion at this point. But there was still a part of me that was like, okay, they've been very accepting of a lot of things now in my life that I wasn't expecting them to. I don't want to push it too hard. And that meant I need to be less authentic with the people who are supposed to love me unconditionally. So if I'm still putting on some kind of an act for them, what does that say about how I feel about the life I'm living? So if you join in the Tub Talks with Damon, crossover is now scheduled for December 17th. So if you want to tune in then, that should be an interesting conversation. And if you're my parents watching this one, I'm giving you warning right now, you watch that one, you're going to learn a lot of stuff about your son that you may not have wanted to know, or maybe you did, who knows. But I've got to stop caring about that. I need to be authentic. If this is a life that I believe is healthy, which I do, then I cannot hide that from the world, because what kind of modeling is that?
Yeah. And as a shout out to our parents, both of us, I think we could say that both of us came from very traditional families, with parents who have both of our sets of parents are still together, are still extraordinarily supportive of one another, are the model of, I think for both of us, we're the model of what at least a commitment to another individual should be. And so I think both of us, our parents' relationships kind of informed at least the type of person, the commitment of a person, the trustworthy, honorable, responsible kind of person we wanted to be with. And for each of us, it took 40 plus years of our lives to find that person. But despite having waited, I think we chose the right one partially because of the example our parentage provided for us, is find somebody who you don't always have to agree with, but at least you know you're always there for one another.
Yeah, we were having this conversation a few days ago about what we got from our parents' relationships.
Yeah.
And because that was going to be one of the questions for the Tub Talks, but we ended up not using it. But I can talk about it now. I think what we got from our parents is if they did not marry their best friend, they are now married to their best friend.
Absolutely.
And that for them, it never seemed, at least we never heard of divorce being an option. It was, this is the person, this is my best friend, this is the person I love, this is the person I want to be with until the day one of us dies, and I may hasten that. But but you get upset at your partner. It's like you can just shove a pillow over their face and end it all, but then you don't, because this is your best friend. And I think we got that from our parents, is that because there are a lot of couples who will, and honestly, I hear this more in heteronormative couples than I do in gay couples, where they say, oh, your spouse should not be your best friend. You should still have a best friend, but make sure that you're not overly dependent on your partner. And so I don't think either one of us fully understand that sentiment. No. I understand that people think that way, and it may be a protective element. And I think a lot of it is that straight couples, women tend to want to have the company of other women to process through emotional stuff that straight men are not typically comfortable with. And straight men seem to have a desire to a lot of them seem to have desire to spend time with other men and do their bonding rituals.
Yeah.
And I think being a gay couple, we kind of get the two in one. How our parents do it, I don't know, but
yeah,
they figured out a way to work for them.
Exactly, and I think things are a little bit different. We can get into the discussion of how gay relationships are a little different than straight relationships, in that there are a lot of the trainings that the social training that we went through as children, as to what a man is supposed to do, we had similarly, and we maintain that within our relationship. We both are certainly independent men, but we also recognize that each of us is equally responsible for every part of our lives. And so, and at no point was there a sense that either one of us had a socially required role to play in this relationship. We knew we were two men. Neither one of us was ever going to be the wife. Neither one of us was ever going to be the woman. We had no choice but to try and figure out individually, what do you take care of? What do I take care of? How do we, merge those two? And I think that's an unusual thing in a gay relationship, that there's far more negotiation necessary because there aren't these expected patterns.
Yeah, and I think the thing for me is that the 13 years at one point seemed like a long time. I mean, it seems like at 13 years I should be able to go, oh, I've been in a long-term marriage at this point, and I'm not sure what I'm supposed to think about, because it does not feel like 13 years that we've been married. It doesn't feel like 15 years that we've been together. It still feels, for me, to a certain degree, new and fresh. And I think a lot of it is that we have grown together. We are not the same people we were when we first got married. So every time there's a growth in one of us in some area, it's like the marriage gets a reset. And I appreciate that, because we're not, there are some routines that we get into, and we'll talk more about that in the tub talk thing, because there's a question about the rituals or whatever we have to keep our marriage sacred. I forget what the question is, but there are routines that we have that have been consistent throughout our relationship, but there's a lot of things, jobs, the interests, hobbies, whatever we're into at the moment, that will evolve. I know for myself, there's been like huge transitions from,
Data analysis to
yeah,
psychology.
and doing the year as Mr. Iowa Leather, and I was working full time, and then I was at school full time and no longer working. So my life patterns changed. The things that I was focused on changed. The conversations, what we talk about, has changed. We've had so many conversations about sex and psychology over the last few years, particularly since I've been studying, because part of being in a human sexuality program that is a combination of education and psychology is looking at myself and the pattern and why I believe the things I do believe about sexuality. And a lot of that for me has profoundly changed over the last 4-5 years. Whenever I started grad school, I started when I was an undergrad, when I was studying psychology for my math major in college.
Oh, and I absolutely agree that my opinions about sex and my opinions about a huge range of sexual topics have changed dramatically. Initially because of being with you and recognizing the safety in, I trust you, and if you wanted to explore something new sexually, I trusted you enough to say, I know he's not out there to hurt me, and I know he's not demeaning me. Just as an example, the title of boy, or the moniker of boy, for most of my life until I met you, I felt that was demeaning and dismissive, and to be termed boy was just so insulting. I shunned the title. But through you, I've recognized that I have a safety with that title, and I recognize that being a person who I show my love and devotion through service, I show my love and devotion by trying to make other people's lives a little easier, and that's how I communicate it. It's a natural progression. Me being of service, I recognize that I am what I would think is a boy. So my concepts of a lot of things, sexual and relationship, have changed dramatically over time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get too much into the weeds of psychology, but one of the modalities or the types of psychology that I'm most interested in is something called narrative therapy. And the narrative theory is that we are, everybody's view of life is life. It's that idea of your perceived reality is your reality. And the story of that reality is the narrative. And for a lot of people, their narrative is defined by other people in their lives, parents, friends, whoever they relate to. Somebody else has the power to tell them what the story of their life is because they set the rules. And narrative therapy tries to move people from giving up that power of other people defining their lives for them. And that includes very specifically the use of words. So if you're using the word boy to define yourself, then you need to define that word for yourself. And if somebody else has a different definition of it and tries to make you feel a certain way about it, as long as you are strong in your truth, then somebody can't take that power away from you and you make you feel bad about something, which for me also extends to the way that I viewed my sexual orientation. Mm-hmm. You can have your opinion about what gay is, and you may have a lot of power to kind of impact my freedom based on your perception of that, but you don't get to own any part of my soul or identity just because you have a strong belief in what it is to be a gay person and what is right or wrong with me. I get to make that choice. And it's been a long journey to come to the point of I'm perfectly happy with myself as a gay man. Not only perfectly happy, I am proud to the point of overcompensation for people who have tried to take that power away. So if for you being a boy is something to be proud of, then it's something to be proud of. If somebody comes up and tells you a boy is a bad term or dismissive term or what have you, then I guess the response would be I probably then would not call yourself that.
Yeah,
because that sounds like a really crappy thing.
I no longer agree with that sentiment. So
so I think we've filled up a good amount of an hour with this conversation. And
there's been nothing sexual. I missed the sexual part.
Well, you have to tune in December when we're naked in a tub.
When we're naked in a tub.
Yeah. When 4 of us are naked in a tub. 2 on the East Coast. And
2 on the West Coast.
Yeah, the way God intended. So thank you for everybody for joining us for this kind of impromptu session. I think I got comfortable after a while, after running around and changing a whole bunch of stuff. So I appreciate your patience with me at the beginning and the fact that we started 35 minutes late. But in the next month, we have a special guest, and I don't have their information in front of me. So check the YouTube page for that. And thank you to my boy Titan, my husband Titan, my best friend Titan, for joining me for this. And look forward to seeing you all next month when Daddy Rod is back. And always remember, listen to Daddy.